Have you ever heard the phrase, "Tell me who your friends are, and I'll tell you who you are"? This truth is powerful, especially when it comes to confidence. The people around you can either be the fuel that ignites your flame or the wind that tries to extinguish it. And the choice of who you allow into your life can be the turning point between growth or stagnation. There was a young entrepreneur with a big dream, but he was surrounded by negative people. Every time he shared his ideas, he would hear, "That will never work," or "Why don't you try something safer?" These words eroded his confidence and almost made him give up, until he decided to change his circle. He started connecting with people who believed in his potential, who encouraged him to try and to rise again after failures. Over time, he not only achieved his goals, but became a source of inspiration for others. His greatest lesson: you don't have to face everything alone. Choose to be with those who believe in you. Think about this. The voices around you become the soundtrack of your mind. If they're constantly telling you that you can't, it's time to change the record. You deserve to be surrounded by people who see the best in you, even when you can't see it yourself. Imagine you're like a hot air balloon. It only rises because the fire pushes it upward. But if you put too much weight on it, it won't take off. The people around you are like that fire or that weight. Who is helping you rise, and who is holding you down? Evaluate your circle. Who are the people that impact your life the most? Do they help you grow, or do they keep you stuck in the same place? Sometimes it's hard to distance yourself from negative people, especially when they're close to you. But remember, protecting your confidence isn't selfish. It's a necessity. And speaking of protection, there's something you need to care for even more: your inner dialogue. The most important conversation you'll ever have in life isn't with someone else. It's with yourself. What you say to yourself daily shapes your perception, your choices, and ultimately, your confidence. There was a woman who struggled with low self-esteem. Whenever she made a mistake, her mind was quick to say, "I'm a failure. I never do anything right." These words imprisoned her. One day, she heard a speaker say, "If you wouldn't speak to a friend like that, why speak to yourself that way?" This changed her perspective. She began correcting herself every time negative thoughts arose. She replaced "I'm a failure" with "I'm learning," and "I never do anything right" with "I'm making progress." This simple shift in her internal dialogue began transforming her confidence. You hear yourself all the time. Every thought and word you say to yourself can be a brick in the construction of your confidence or a sledgehammer tearing it down. Choose to be your greatest supporter, not your harshest critic. Think of your mind as a garden. If you plant seeds of doubt and negativity, you'll harvest weeds. But if you plant words of encouragement and self-love, you'll grow flowers of confidence. Every day, you choose what to plant. That doesn't mean it will be easy. Weeds or negative thoughts appear on their own. They don't ask for permission. But flowers require care, dedication, and attention. Have you ever stopped to listen to how the most confident people speak to themselves? They don't call themselves incapable. They say, "Okay, that was a mistake, but I learned from it." Or, "Today wasn't my best, but tomorrow is a new chance." This kind of dialogue doesn't happen naturally. It's something you have to build, one brick at a time. Now, take a moment and ask yourself, what have I been saying to myself lately? If those words were spoken by someone else, would you feel inspired or discouraged? You might realize you need to reframe those conversations. Start small. The next time you make a mistake, say, "This is a lesson." When moving forward feels hard, say, "I'm stronger than I think." These words won't change everything overnight, but they're like a daily medicine. Over time, you'll notice the difference. When you begin to change your inner dialogue, the impact will be immense. You'll find challenges more manageable, victories more celebrated, and your confidence unshakable. But there's something crucial to remember. No change is linear. There will be days when you doubt yourself, days when fear screams louder and mistakes feel insurmountable. And that's okay. Progress isn't perfect. It's persistent. Every time you choose to keep going, even when afraid, you strengthen your confidence. Remember, Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's taking action despite it. Now, think about fear. It often feels like an impenetrable wall, something so massive it stops us in our tracks. But what you might not realize is that, upon closer inspection, this wall isn't solid. It's made of loose bricks, and every act of courage removes one of them. The more you act, the more gaps appear in that wall, until one day you realize it was never as strong as it seemed. Here's something I've learned about fear. It doesn't like action. Every time you act, even imperfectly, it loses its power. Remember this the next time fear tries to stop you. Tell yourself, I don't need to be perfect. I just need to try. With every attempt, you become stronger than you were before. And one day, you'll look back and realize that fear wasn't eliminated, but it was put in its proper place as a guidepost, not a barrier. Now, let's talk about practical courage, the kind of courage that doesn't stem from grand speeches or heroic gestures, but from the small daily decisions you make. Practical courage is when you choose to face an uncomfortable task, even when everything inside you tells you to give up. It's when you decide to speak up in a meeting, even if you think your idea isn't good enough. It's when you try again, even after failing. Imagine a young woman who desperately wanted to learn public speaking, but was terrified of being on stage. She started small, sharing ideas in small meetings, then presenting projects to smaller groups. Over time, she gained confidence. What led her to success wasn't the absence of fear, but consistent practice. Each small victory strengthened her self-confidence. Now think, what are you avoiding because you think you're not ready? What would you like to do, but feel you need to be perfect before starting? Let me tell you something that might take some weight off your shoulders. No one starts perfect. No one feels 100% confident before taking the first step. Confidence comes along the way, not beforehand. And this brings us to something powerful. Building confidence requires an environment that nurtures it. Surrounding yourself with people who believe in you can completely transform your journey. The young entrepreneur I mentioned earlier had big dreams, but was surrounded by people who belittled his ideas. This drained his motivation. Only when he changed his circle, connecting with people who shared ambitions and encouraged him to keep going, did he achieve success. Have you ever wondered how your life would look if you were surrounded by people who believed in your potential? Imagine being in an environment where, when you share your dreams, the response is, I believe in you. How can I help? This shift is powerful, not only because these people support you, but because they also challenge you to be better. Choosing your circle isn't about being selective or selfish. It's about protecting what you're building. You're like a growing plant. You need light, water, and space. Negative people are like constant shade. They block your growth. On the other hand, those who believe in you are like rays of sunshine. They don't do the work for you, but create the necessary environment for you to thrive. And here's something important. If you want to attract people who lift you up, you need to be that person too. Be the kind of friend, partner, or colleague who encourages, celebrates others' achievements, and supports them even in tough moments. When you spread positivity, it comes back to you. In the end, confidence isn't just something you build within yourself, but also something that grows in the connections you establish. Remember, the people around you have the power to either nurture or destroy your confidence. Choose wisely. Now that we've talked about the impact of the people around you, we need to shift the focus back to your relationship with yourself. Your confidence isn't just about what others say or do. It is, above all, a reflection of how much you believe in yourself. And this brings us to a crucial point. How do you deal with failure? Often, when we make mistakes, we are quick to condemn ourselves. That small error turns into a huge monster in our minds. I'm terrible at this. I'll never get it right. Why do I always fail? These phrases are like poison to your confidence. They not only hurt, but create barriers that make it even harder to try again. Now, imagine this, a baby trying to walk for the first time. They take a step and fall, then another step and fall again. Do you think the baby thinks, I'll never learn? No, they simply try again, without the burden of judgment. Why? Because they haven't yet learned to criticize themselves. They're focused on the journey, not the mistake. What if you could bring this mindset back into your life? What if, instead of criticizing yourself, you looked at your failures as opportunities to learn? When you treat each mistake as part of the process, your confidence grows. Not because you stop failing, but because you've learned to get back up without carrying the weight of self-criticism. Here's an exercise that might help. Every time you make a mistake, ask yourself, what did this teach me? Maybe you realize you need to try a different approach or that you need more practice. The important thing is to remember that the mistake doesn't define who you are. When you treat each mistake as part of the process, your confidence grows. Not because you stop failing, but because you've learned to get back up without carrying the weight of self-criticism. Here's an exercise that might help. Every time you make a mistake, ask yourself, what did this teach me? Maybe you realize you need to try a different approach or that you need more practice. The important thing is to remember that the mistake doesn't define who you are. It's just a moment, not your identity. Confidence also comes from keeping the promises you make to yourself. Think about how many times you've said, I'll start this tomorrow, but never did. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you're telling your subconscious that you can't trust yourself, and this deeply impacts your confidence. But here's the good news. You can change this right now. Start with small promises. Promise yourself you'll do something simple, like walk for 10 minutes or write 1 page a day. And then follow through. With each small promise you keep, you're rebuilding trust in yourself. And remember, no one, but you can define your worth. It doesn't matter what people say or think. What truly matters is what you believe about yourself. When you start treating yourself with respect, your confidence becomes an unshakable force. Now, I want you to reflect. Think about something you've always wanted to do, but have postponed because you didn't think you were good enough. It could be small or big. It doesn't matter. Just close your eyes and imagine what it would feel like to take the first step. Imagine the feeling of doing something that once seemed impossible. That feeling, even if fleeting, is what happens when you choose to trust yourself. Have you noticed that confidence isn't about never having doubts or fears, but about acting despite them? When you start to take action, even small steps, something incredible happens. Your mind begins to change. It realizes that you are stronger than you thought. Every small action you take is like placing a stone on a path that leads to something greater. Over time, you build a solid road made of your courageous choices. But here's the truth. There will be hard days. Days when you feel like you're not making progress, that everything is stagnant. And on those days, you need to remember something important. Progress isn't linear. Even when it feels like you're standing still, the efforts you made in the past are taking root. Imagine a plant growing beneath the surface. For weeks, you might not see anything, but one day, it breaks through the soil and grows rapidly. That's the power of consistent effort. And speaking of consistency, I want you to think about how you celebrate your victories. How many times have you achieved something and, instead of celebrating, immediately moved on to the next goal? This is common. We're always thinking about what's next, but we forget to acknowledge how far we've already come. Celebrating is a way to strengthen your confidence because it reinforces the message that you are capable. Think about your journey so far. There have been moments when you overcame challenges, moments when you proved to yourself that you could. It might have been something small, like learning something new, or something big, like overcoming a fear. These victories, no matter how small, are proof that you are resilient. When you acknowledge them, you're telling yourself, I've done this before and I can do it again. Now, I want to leave you with a final message. Everything we've talked about today, recognizing where you are, eliminating limiting beliefs, cultivating habits, facing fears, surrounding yourself with people who uplift you, and maintaining a positive inner dialogue is like a manual for building lasting confidence. But in the end, the power lies in your hands. No one can build this for you. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the confident person you want to become. Imagine them facing challenges, overcoming doubts, and achieving goals. That person is not a distant dream. That person is you. The power to build this confidence is in your hands. You've already taken the first step by listening to this message. Now, the choice is yours. Continue or turn back. Don't wait any longer. Start today, even if it's just with a small step. And I want to hear from you. What are the biggest challenges you face on this journey to building your confidence? Share in the comments. Your story might inspire others to overcome their own challenges. Remember, you don't need to be perfect to be confident. You just need to believe you're capable of growing, learning, and transforming your life. Believe in yourself, because the world is waiting to see what you're capable of achieving.